People are not acquaintances yet. When I was studying here in the past, every time I took the train back to school during the winter and summer vacations, as soon as I heard the station names such as Chinjiazai and Xingxiangfang announced by the radio in the carriage, the fatigue of the journey disappeared immediately, and my heart was also relieved by a kind of infiltrated with very kind and lively emotions. The provincial capital of Harbin is right in front of me, but with the dust rolled up by dense vehicles and the city noise getting thicker and thicker, my heart is like the sunset that is gradually setting in the buildings in front of me. The enthusiasm of wanting to see the city immediately disappeared without a trace with the last road marker. But now, when I stopped in front of the last road marker at the fork outside the city, I felt a deep sense of loss. I even took out the map and looked at the road in front of me that forks to Jilin, and I wanted to cross Harbin and go directly to Jilin. But in the end, because it was getting late, and I was also irritated by the road, and I had blisters on my lips, I needed to rest for 2 days, and then I fell into the city exhausted. What a coincidence, the road entering the city happened to pass through Onel Street, and the house of Suanze, my first love whom I loved when I was in college, was at this intersection. During those 3 years, the two of us spent too much time wandering around Onel Street. Even the shops, stations, small shops, and food stalls here seemed to have a relative flavor. Those youthful and happy shadows seem to be still walking everywhere at this time. I can even hear their noise and whispers, and I can see the surprise and laughter on their expressions. In real life they have already separated and each has their own home, but now that I pass by this place again in this way, I still can't help but feel heartbroken and feel lost. The news that I was traveling by bicycle spread among my classmates and friends in Harbin 2 or 3 days ago. It turned out that the Provincial Life Daily had already published a message. Reporter Song Si travels alone by bicycle to collect interviews across the country. So as soon as I stepped into the door of a classmate's house, he said in surprise, "It's really you." At first I didn't understand the truth of the statement, until he found out the newspaper and let me read it. The news came from Feng Kuoan, a good friend of the provincial newspaper's Mutanjiang reporter station. Boy, I told them not to show off. The enthusiasm of the old classmates is still the same, but I found that because of the house, wife, children, work, etc., many of the classmates who came to see me have lost the exuberant youth and enthusiasm of the former Cha classmate boy. A buddy who once met for a grand tour of Beijing by bike during the summer vacation, now sees me traveling alone, and can't remember the high spirits of the past. Some even persuaded me to go home, which reminded me of an essay I wrote, Persuading People to Downward, which discussed the kindness of persuading others to give up their beautiful ideals and face reality. However, facing the warm and friendly classmates at this time, I can only feel an understanding and touch in my heart. They are sincerely worried about me. When a girl named Jing learned that I had arrived in Harbin, she was so happy that she cheered for me on the phone. She was originally a good friend between me and Suanze. This morning, she called my classmate's office and said she would come to see me right away. After a while, she really came, and brought Xianzia. In fact, when Jing called just now, I expected that Suanze would come with her. When I first set off, I also thought about meeting Suanze after arriving in Harbin, but I finally cancelled this idea. One is because the current way of living on the road has taught me to take everything lightly so as to avoid troubles. The other is that from her point of view, she will be in a dilemma when facing my travels. At this moment of almost life and death, she can neither cheer for me like a normal friend, nor can she show any special concern or sadness, so she will definitely be contradictory and even embarrassed. Now she is sitting across from me, which fully proves my idea. She is like another friend who followed Jing to see friends. She hardly talks, and even when I joke with Jing, she can't laugh. In such a situation, it is also impossible for me to take special care of her in terms of language. Therefore, after sitting for a short time, when the cheerful Jing and I were talking happily, Suanze proposed to leave. It was raining lightly outside, and she had no choice but to sit down again, but her face, which was even paler because of wearing a black dress, was full of complex expressions. My classmate proposed to invite them to lunch together, but I hinted to stop it. I think it's better to let nature take its course. Although it was raining, they finally got up and left. It took a total of half an hour to sit and walk. But that's enough. I think love is just a kind of light spirit, just like the mountain that always exists, and you don't have to care about the blooming and falling of the 4 seasons of flowers and plants on it. The light rain outside was the first spring rain this year, and the air was filled with a refreshing watery smell. In the past, I have described Suan's voice as having this moisture, but I didn't mention it at this time. When sending them out the door, the girl named Jing turned around and wanted to make another joke. I put a finger on my lips and shushed her. I knew Suanza was feeling bad. I raised my hand, and they walked into the misty rain without an umbrella, and the light rain was very helpless. I wrote a poem that day. Hungry lover. Flocks of pigeons fly back. Fall on the trail to peck. They are me. Dead lovers, perennial. Hungry soul. I dropped my hand. Grains, those for them. Planted year after year. The grain contains me. Cherished heart. Standing in front of the sunflower, I look at them. Petals flying wet. Still hungry. Be my lover. Because I have been in the circle of classmates for 2 days, I didn't talk to the poet Panzikin on the phone until this afternoon. He said that he had prepared a criticism meeting and waited for me at the Creation House of the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles. I rushed to the Creation House and was stunned as soon as I entered the door. It turned out that the 6 or 7 good friends in Mudanjiang heard that I had arrived in Harbin, so they came by train overnight. Because I couldn't find me, I have been waiting for me in the Creation House for a day and a night, just to take another look at me and give me a ride. Among them, my mechanic Pen Yueling returned to Mudanjiang at noon with the regret of not being able to overhaul my bicycle for the last time because he had a job. As soon as I showed up, I immediately became the target of public criticism, and everyone vented their anxiety waiting for me. Photographer Zhang Xiao's wife, Sun Ping, who smiled and showed a small canine tooth, yelled at me, saying that she had discussed with Xiao on the train to let her kiss me when they met, but now she decided to change the kiss to punishment. Find me to let her scrape 3 noses. I had to obediently get 3 nose scrapes. In the evening, everyone invited me to Huamei to eat Western food. After returning, Sun Ping sewed up my clothes with stitches and stitches. The next morning my friends sent me on my way again. The moment I boarded the car before leaving, my poet friend Zhu Lingbo's mood suddenly deteriorated, and he said viciously, "Go away, fall a stone on the top of a mountain in Tibet, and don't come back." I nodded silently, waved my hands away, and became a lone traveler again. At this point, people should understand why I felt so lost when I was about to enter Harbin that day, and even almost wanted to cross it and go directly to Jilin. Harbin is cordial, but after all, time has passed and circumstances have changed, which only adds to the sigh of the flowers fall helplessly, and the swallows return like déjà vu. In ancient China, there were extremely rich and wonderful words to praise the beauty of. For example, Song Yu, a master of Ci and Fu, said, "The son of the Dong family, if you increase it by 1 point, it will be too long, the teeth are like shellfish, with a sweet smile, you will confuse Yang Chen and fascinate Cai." Li Yanyan of the Western Han Dynasty said in a song, "There are beautiful women in the north. They are peerless and independent. Look at the city of people, and then look at the country of people. I would rather not know about the city and the country. A beautiful woman is hard to come by again. The blue is better than the blue, as Song Yuji said, it is like straw meeting gold." Now, this beautiful woman with a veiled face is sitting beside me. I just had a glimpse of her, and it was unforgettable and lingering in my dreams. Now, finally seeing her, the excitement, surprise, and excitement in my heart are beyond words, making people feel at a loss. He wanted to take off her veil immediately, but he was afraid of being abrupt, and he couldn't bear to wait for a moment. The beautiful woman I am talking about is the book History of the Bank of China. I have only seen some fragments of it in Huang Weidong's articles, and I am already very excited. This book is related to the correctness of my criticism of a series of economic and financial issues such as the introduction of foreign capital, foreign exchange earnings from exports, dollar reserves, open finance, and even the promotion of RMB internationalization based on foreign exchange. The understanding of major issues such as economics, finance, and currency is related to the shift of China's current major policies, the fundamental interests of the Chinese people and the Chinese nation, and even life and death. It is about the birth of a new world political and economic order. In short, this book has placed too many expectations on me, and it is too important to me. She is the key to unraveling China's economic, financial, trade, and currency issues, and pointing out a golden road for the Chinese people. Therefore, I have this kind of inexplicable excitement, surprise, and joy, and I think everyone should be able to experience it. It may also be because I was too excited, too intense, and too joyful, so I didn't dare to open the book for a few days in front of me, because I was afraid that its content was not as beautiful as I imagined, and I was afraid that her book was as beautiful as I imagined. In short, I am more timid near the hometown, and I dare not ask people. After a few days of uneasiness, I finally couldn't help it, so I found a sunny noon, solemnly opened this book, and had a look at its beauty. It really lived up to its reputation, and it really was an earth-shattering, indomitable, and earth-shattering cause. Here I select a few paragraphs for the readers. Chapter 14 New Developments in International Settlement Business. 1 citation, in the late 1960s, in the international trade settlement, the currency that could be used or basically used was the currency of 13 countries including the United States, the United Kingdom, the Federal Republic of Germany, Switzerland, France, and the Netherlands, 37 countries including Japan and Australia. The country stipulates that both its own currency and the commonly used foreign currency are used. Other countries mainly or completely use the commonly used foreign currency. Commentary. This paragraph tells us that it is extremely difficult for a country's currency to become a settlement currency for international trade. 2 citation, in China's foreign trade, the currencies of major Western capitalist countries are used for quotation and settlement. After the United States illegally froze China's assets in the United States in December 1950, China's import and export trade stopped using US dollars, mainly using British pounds. Hong Kong dollars and Swiss francs are planned and settled. China no longer publicizes the exchange rate of RMB against the US dollar, and only uses the exchange rate of the US dollar for internal control. The exchange rates of the currencies of other capitalist countries are changed to the pound sterling exchange rate for arbitrage. Therefore, in the 1960s, China's foreign exchange receipts and payments from capitalist countries were dominated by British pounds, accounting for more than half, followed by Hong Kong dollars. For socialist countries such as the Soviet Union, rubles were used for bookkeeping and settlement. Commentary. This passage tells us that at the beginning of the founding of New China, US dollars were not accepted for settlement, because the United States was hostile to us and froze our property in the United States. I would like to ask you gentlemen, you are so pro-American and you earn so much dollars by exporting, are you not afraid of the freezing of the United States? 3 citation, try out RMB denomination and settlement. November 1967, the sharp depreciation of the British pound caused a chain reaction in the currency exchange rates of the British pound area and related countries. At that time, most of China's exports were in the British pound area. In the face of the Western currency crisis, in order to reduce foreign exchange risks and protect national interests, the bank actively studied countermeasures. In March 1968, it proposed to use RMB as a trial settlement for import and export in Hong Kong and Macau. Hong Kong dollars as the local currency of Hong Kong, it can still be used for import and export to Hong Kong. On April 12 of the same year, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and the People's Bank of China jointly requested instructions from the State Council. After approval, they decided to start trial implementation in Hong Kong and Macau at the Guangzhou Fair in the spring of 1968. The main reasons for being in Hong Kong and Macau are, Hong Kong and Macau are originally Chinese territories and have a large number of patriotic compatriots. The local market supply depends on the domestic market, and domestic exports to Hong Kong and Macau are greater than imports. There are many Chinese institutions in Hong Kong and Macau, and the local financial, industry, and commerce have extensive connections, and Hong Kong is a free trade port, which is conducive to pilot projects. Commentary. Remember, in 1968, it was China that began to settle foreign trade in RMB. A lesbian who claimed to have been engaged in foreign trade for decades said that the RMB is not a world currency, so it cannot be used as a settlement currency for China's foreign trade. I showed him a report from Reference News dated May 18, 1970, proving the history of RMB valuation, payment, and settlement in China's foreign trade. She said that the reporter who reported the news did not understand trade and finance, so she made a mistake. I'm speechless. Here, again, I offer you some evidence. If you don't believe me, you can buy a copy of The History of the Bank of China and have a look. Hard facts can't change your prejudice. 4 citation. The trial implementation of RMB pricing and settlement means that foreign trade is changed to RMB to sign trade contracts. China's export commodities can be priced in RMB, and settlements are made in RMB when receiving payments. Imported goods can also be converted into renminbi denomination according to the price of foreign businessmen, and the exchange rate agreed upon in the agreement will be converted into foreign currency for payment. The purpose of this trial implementation of RMB denomination is mainly to preserve the value of China's export collection of foreign exchange, avoid and reduce due to the depreciation of foreign currency, China's foreign exchange loss. The trial implementation of RMB denomination and settlement is not to make the RMB circulate and use internationally. The RMB is still not allowed to be carried out of the country, and it is not exported internationally as a means of payment or storage. 5. Citation: the Spring Trade Fair in 1969 began, and RMB was also used for the payment of ocean export trade. It first started from the United Kingdom, and Tianjin port alone made 17 transactions, which basically went smoothly. China's import and export trade is settled in RMB. There are both disadvantages and advantages to using RMB to settle foreign trade in Western Europe. The disadvantage is that China's trade with major European capitalist countries generally imports more than exports. In addition to a part of the Westdeutschmark and Swiss francs, a considerable part of the soft currency British pound, French francs, such as the use of stable RMB payment, in fact, for foreign capitalists to bear the risk of currency depreciation. Favorable on the one hand, you don't suffer from the price of goods because of the use of soft currency. I don't quite understand the underlined part. After all, I am not a professional in this field. Since the 1968 Guangzhou Spring Fair began to try RMB-denominated settlement, banks and foreign trade departments have some different views and opinions on this. Those who hold affirmative opinions believe that RMB-denominated settlement is the beginning of RMB as a means of settlement for international trade, which reflects that the renminbi is an internationally stable currency. It ensures that China's export commodities are protected from the loss of capitalist currency devaluation, and avoids a lot of work such as revising contracts brought about by the depreciation of Western currencies. Those who hold negative opinions believe that the renminbi has not been used internationally. It is circulated and used in the financial market, and it has no practical significance to use it to calculate and settle account processing issues within the intermediary bank. In order to avoid foreign currency losses, it is sufficient to set a value preservation clause. When the Spring Fair opened in 1970, some Western news agencies spread the words that China is not a member of the International Monetary Fund, and the RMB is not an international currency, etc., and enterprises affected the implementation of RMB pricing and settlement. Commentary: today, some people still think that RMB is not an international currency. Therefore, it is impossible for China's foreign trade to be priced, paid, and settled in RMB. Isn't it ridiculous? 6. Quotation: as for RMB settlement, a small number of people who were influenced by ultra-left thoughts in China at that time also disturbed the audience. Practically loud. Commentary: today, isn't there also the tone of RMB internationalization? Moreover, it is also based on foreign exchange reserves such as the US dollar. Do I still need to criticize? 7. Citation: under the support, care, and instructions of Zhou Enlai and the State Council, in the face of the frequent turmoil of Western currencies, the bank and the vast number of cadres of foreign trade worked together to eliminate external interference, gradually expanded the pilot work, and strengthened the use of RMB. Confidence in pricing and settlement. Commentary: in 1968, the Cultural Revolution had been going on for 2 years, and some people had already gone to other places to drink mutai. These decisions, of course, have nothing to do with it. Should there be instructions from Chairman Mao here? Could it be that Chairman Mao didn't know about RMB pricing and settlement, or didn't give instructions? I don't quite believe it. 8. Citation: in 1968, when Premier Zhou Enlai met with the head office officials of the People's Bank of China, he pointed out that the currencies of the Western capitalist world were in chaos, while the stability of China's financial currency is rare in the world, and the credit of the RMB is very high. In 1969, Zhou Enlai instructed, RMB does not go abroad, even in Hong Kong and Macau, RMB does not circulate there. Commentary: in my opinion, this is to prevent RMB speculation, but it does not affect the RMB becoming the currency of valuation, payment, and settlement in China's trade. 9. Citation: in August 1970, when Zhou Enlai received representatives from the National Finance and Banking Symposium, he pointed out, my country's trade with capitalist countries such as Britain, France, Switzerland, and the Federal Republic of Germany will be priced and settled in RMB. This is a victory. We are not going to send the RMB out of the country. Our RMB is credible and stable, and can be settled in RMB. This is the achievement of socialist construction and is worth encouraging. Commentary: Premier Zhou attached great importance to and affirmed the RMB pricing and settlement work. 10 Citation: In the 1970 Spring Fair, in addition to Hong Kong, Macau, Britain, France, Switzerland, and the Federal Republic of Germany, most of the tin plating was priced and settled in RMB, and about 20 countries, including Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Australia, part of the trade in the region is also settled in RMB. In 1971, the countries and regions that used RMB to calculate and settle in the Spring Fair expanded to Spain, Mexico, Nepal, Bahrain, Reunion, etc., covering 5 continents, a total of 40 countries and regions, and another 15 agreement countries also use RMB for settlement. Since then, the number of countries and regions using RMB for settlement has continued to increase, increasing from 55, including agreement countries, in 1973 to 63 in 1971, and further increased to 120 in 1976. Commentary: Even during the Cultural Revolution, the internationalization of RMB reached a very high level. 11 Citation: Since then, due to changes in the situation, the proportion of customers using RMB for settlement began to decline. By the time of the Autumn Fair in 1976, the number of customers using RMB for export had dropped to 910 million yuan, accounting for 57.7% of the total export customers. The value of imports in RMB accounted for 9% of the total value of imports. Commentary: By the time of the Autumn Fair in 1976, extremely significant changes had taken place in China. Premier Zhou, Boss Zhu, and Chairman Mao passed away successively. I want to say that China has a sense of sovereignty on the issue of RMB pricing and settlement. It is out of the utmost protection of fair and just trade and the interests of the Chinese people. It does not blindly embrace the US dollar or regard the US dollar as a hard currency. Who, and for what reason, affected the RMB denomination and settlement? How did the RMB's valuation, payment, and settlement rights in China's foreign trade be lost? How did this history of RMB valuation, payment, and settlement be deeply hidden, even in some foreign trade departments that claim to be working for 30 years? People do not know. Moreover, until today, there are still very strong voices saying, the renminbi is not an international currency, so it is impossible to have the qualifications for valuation, payment, and settlement in foreign trade. Some people even say, the US dollar is the world currency. How to engage in foreign trade in foreign exchange, such boring and ignorant words, turned out to be the golden rule of China's mainstream economic, trade, and financial circles. I have the confusion of candle shadow and axe sound, please explain it together. Compared with today's economic, financial, trade, and monetary situation, there are still many problems that deserve our deep thinking. Author, Wu Ming. Source, Wu Ming commented again. Related suggestion. Clarify the rumors. Marshal Ye Jianying told the truth about the Mao era, 2023-06-02. Some people were dumbfounded after reading 50 unexplainable facts about Chairman Mao 2023-0531. Xi Binai reveals the secret on his deathbed, Chairman Mao's good intentions, 2023-05-27. Academy of Social Sciences, the Great Chemical Revolution should be viewed in this way, 2023-05-25. Mao chose this passage, and remembered the nonsense of the old academician. 2023-05-22. In 1958, Chairman Mao wrote this letter to Comrade Zhao Ziang, which proved his innocence. Woman love is well. When dusk was approaching, I rode to a small forest farm area in Jilin. Being cross-provincial, the journey took on a sense of being far away, and I felt like a real traveler. Walking along the border between Heilongjiang Province and Kyrgyzstan Province is like walking into a page of Qing Dynasty history. The names of many villages along the way have a strong historical color: Jinguankaitan, Jinguankixitan, Zionlankitan, Zionlankitan, Zionlankitan Baikatan, etc., always give you the illusion that you are still a subject of the Qing Empire. Walking into a quiet private motel on the side of the road, the proprietress' sister-in-law Ah Qing, who looked very happy and smiling, came forward to receive me enthusiastically, first poured water to wash my face, and then gave me a hot towel. I came from a bicycle trip, and I still complained for me with a task disc. I thought I had met a female bodhisattva. During the meal, she personally held the menu and urged me to order expensive dishes, saying that I needed to supplement my nutrition. When I only wanted a bowl of poached egg noodles and a side dish, she persuaded me to drink again, saying that drinking alcohol would help me sleep well. I told her that drinking would hurt my strength, and that I wouldn't be able to ride a bike tomorrow, so her face turned cold. Later, she came to encourage me to live in the most expensive room in the store, saying that I was too tired and needed to rest and refresh myself. In the end, I asked for the cheapest room. Anyway, she didn't have anyone else here. Private room. So far, the proprietress no longer cares about me. At night, I was afraid that my bicycle would be lost outside, so I asked to move it into the corridor, but she refused to let me go. Fortunately, her husband, who is a policeman, came back at this time. After hearing what I said about the situation, he immediately moved the car in for me. After a while, the policeman came to my room after dinner, chatted with me, looked up the map for me, and told me the way to Changchun. He is very interested in my travels. Then the policeman went out and whispered to the landlady in the hall. The landlady's voice gradually rose, and I heard clearly that her husband, a policeman, wanted her to waive my board and lodging fees, and wanted to drink beer with me. The proprietress said angrily, "As long as you know how to pretend to be a good person, what does it matter to you when people travel? What does this family rely on if they don't charge money? You have to smoke, drink and make friends, and your children have to go to school. You can't kick the few who can't be knocked down. Drink the northwest wind for a salary." After a while, the policeman returned to my room and continued to chat with me. The lady boss immediately sent the child to call him. Seeing that he didn't come out after a few minutes, she rushed in herself to say she had something to do with him. The husband of the police officer probably got angry after he went out, and he never came back to the store after he left. I didn't necessarily have to waive the money, but I still silently accepted a favor from the policeman. And I feel that this little episode is full of human touch. Lying in bed at night, I thought about this incident and thought about the other encounters along the way, and thought about the following questions. It is generally accepted that women are the most caring, giving, kind and compassionate women in the world. But after this trip, I found that the question needed to be revisited. I also admit that women are caring. But except for those women who received a good social education or special circumstances, as far as the natural nature of ordinary women is concerned, their love is often limited to a word deep and a word small. I use a well to describe it. This well is generally only dug deeply around a small circle formed by the family, husband, and children. The well is filled with water of love, but the water generally does not overflow the well head. Only a few people who hold the well ropes and buckets of this well can drink the water, and other people who are not entitled to its well ropes and buckets, even if you are very thirsty and need the help of the water, it was also difficult to get a sip. Sometimes they will take the initiative to give a little charity, but it is generally limited to pity the little ones. They often shed tears because of watching magazines or TV dramas, but for the kind of sublime things and heroic people who need help more, they often show a well of indifference because of lack of knowledge and understanding. On the contrary, a man's love is different. Their love may not be so deep, but it is expressed in the characters bo and de. We can use a lake to describe it. The lake water is broad and open. Although it is not as sweet and moist as the well water, if you are thirsty and need that water, you can usually grab a few handfuls to drink it. Sometimes you can even jump in and take a shower, and take some with you when you leave. They generally don't pay much attention to the small and the weak, but they often help the kind of majestic things and heroic people at critical moments. All the car drivers I met along the way, the masters of the canteens in the village, the construction contractors, the road crews, the hostesses of people on the side of the road, etc., were all men with that kind of love. On the contrary, I opened my mouth several times for help on the way, for some women who secretly hope to get a little help are often the kind of loving women. I reiterate, except for those women who have received a good social education or special circumstances. I fell asleep thinking about it.